Welcome to the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. In this episode, I will be interviewing Anna from Tanzania. And also my wife is going to be chiming in occasionally now and then, Rejoice Tapon. And I'm really fascinated by this episode because we talk so much about witchcraft. Witchcraft is one of those unseen things about Africa. You might have heard about it, but you don't actually see how it affects the day-to-day life. Anna is interesting because she spent almost a year in South Africa quite recently, as also she lived all her life in Tanzania in two different areas, Dar es Salaam as well as the capital. So her perspective is quite interesting, and we really dig in to the whole witchcraft stuff. But we talk about so many other topics. We talk about Fidelity, we talk about the government, and we talk about how Tanzania, what direction is it going in? How does she feel about racism in South Africa? So there's a lot of issues that we do cover, not just witchcraft, but to me, that part is the most juicy. So go ahead and tune into this episode, and I hope that you learn a lot about unseen sides of Tanzania as well as South Africa. Welcome everybody to the WanderLearn podcast. I'm here with Anamaria, and she's from Tanzania. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm also here. Rejoice is in the background. My wife, she occasionally may interject if she has something to say, but Anamaria, you are the star of the show, and so I'm mainly going to be talking to you to learn a little bit about more, not just Tanzania, but also South Africa, because you spent about 7 months in South Africa. Is that right? Or is it 9 months?
7 months.
Okay. And then what you were there in 2015?
To 2016.
Okay. And what brought you down to South Africa? Because what I'm most curious about is a lot of people, they have a tendency to believe that all of Africans are the same. There's just one big country. There's no difference between Kenyans and Tanzanians. And so what I'm trying to do is to help understand what precisely are those differences and what precisely are the similarities between the various different countries. And that's just countries. Obviously, every country has multiple ethnic groups. For example, Tanzania. How many ethnic groups do you know in Tanzania?
A lot, like almost 23.
Okay, and in Cameroon, I think they have over 50. And South Africa, I don't know how many, but I know they have 11 official languages. So I'm not going to delve in too much with the specific tribes because then it gets really confusing. But let's just start with the big picture between South Africa and Tanzania. When you think of these two different countries and the people who live in it, what are some of the differences that pop into your head?
In terms of development, South Africa is more developed compared to our country, Tanzania. So, and in terms of different perspectives of life, they are also quite different.
For example?
For example, ways of living. We are quite very different from them.
So tell me a little bit about, so that people have a little bit of perspective of what you're coming from. You were born in Tanzania. What part of Tanzania?
I was born in Dodoma.
Which is now the capital?
Yes.
It has been the capital since the 1970s?
Yes, it has.
But the government seems to have largely ignored it. I mean, nobody knows. I don't think Tanzanians know that Dodoma is the capital.
They do know.
Okay, I'm joking, of course, but it is such a kind of small little town that nobody thinks about, that everybody thinks Dar es Salaam, which is the big city, is the capital, which, of course, a lot of the embassies are located here, and the government's located here. But, of course, that's changing now. In this last 5 years or so, the government's finally making an effort to move it out, isn't it?
Yes, it has. And right now, like most of the government institutes and people actually are moving from Dar es Salaam to Dodoma because they've officially made it a capital. So
when did that happen? This year?
Yes, this year.
Okay, so 2018, they officially made it a capital, even though it's been officially a capital since 1970 what?
77.
Okay, 1977. Who knows? We'll look that up later. But anyway, the point is that it's been the capital officially for a while, but the whole country's largely ignored it until 2018, where they finally said, okay. So you're from Dodoma, and from that region, and then from there you came out. You eventually made it to South Africa. So, coming from that perspective, just tell me some of the things that you think South Africans that kind of shocked you when you first got there. You're like, wow, no idea that South Africans, the way they think, is so completely different than us.
Like I was like the way I was raised here, it was quite different because when I moved there, I went there for a purpose of getting married to a guy that I was with, of which we met in Tanzania. So when we went to South Africa, and things were quite different because, like, I knew the way we were raised here and taught by our mothers, like, you need to be submissive to a man and stuff. So when I went there, things were quite different. So, like, even the family would look up and to me, and they would be like, at times things will be done and they'll be like you need to stand up for yourself and stuff. So, like, women are different in Tanzania compared to there. Like, they know their rights and they could stand up for themselves. It does not matter whether you're educated or something, but here it's quite different. You might be educated, but yet when it comes to marriage, a man is the head of the house. So that was quite different compared to what I was used with.
Do you remember a specific epiphany, a certain moment when all of a sudden that really hit you home, one strong moment?
What do you mean?
Like an example, something that, like, wow, that definitely was a moment when I realized these guys have a different vision of how women should behave with regard to their men.
Yeah, I remember sometimes I was kind of humiliated and stuff by the man I was with. So the sister to that guy I was with, she was like, she wanted to take me away from that place, and she was like, if you're not gonna treat her well, I'm gonna take her away from you. So that was really shocking.
And he was a Xhosa?
Yes, he was.
And so then you guys originally met here, and then you went out there to kind of do the marriage thing. And did you already have a baby by the time you went to South Africa?
No, I didn't. I got pregnant when I was there.
I see. And then the marriage never went through.
Yeah.
So this is a common theme. I mean, I hear this all the time in Africa. That's one thing that's a Pan-African issue, where men impregnate women and then they leave them either during the pregnancy, shortly after the pregnancy. Do you agree that that's something that is prevalent all over the place?
It happens in most of the places, and in our community, it's something that it's there, and it's because nowadays women have got a chance to be educated, and they know what they want and what is really right for themselves. So it's quite different from previous, when women were like all depending on their husbands or on their men. So it's really quite different.
So what I'm really trying to understand is, why is it that so many African women fall for this line that men often give them, that, hey, don't worry, baby, I'm gonna do whatever, you're my special one, etc. Is that what happened to you? Did your Xhosa man, whatever, did he promise you the world? What made you say, this guy is different?
Like, we stayed together, so in the process of dating, and you would observe, like, in the process of living together, you at the end plan to have a family and stuff. So when it doesn't work out that way like you planned, so what happened.
But there's also no real stigma either, is it? I mean, it's not like the family sits there and say, oh my God, how could you get pregnant and not be married?
No, they don't do that.
So that's another issue, is that in a lot of African cultures, there's no shame or stigma. Is that fair to say? Rejoice?
Where I came from, especially in Marwa and Garwa, girls stay with their boyfriends. The guy will come and pick you up in the evening from your house. You always have to come back to the house and spend the night, and you can't get pregnant. If you become pregnant before you get married, if your parent realize you're pregnant 1 month, they will make whatever to get you to get married before it starts to show, because it is really something that they still gossip about it. Yeah, it's shameful. It's just impossible.
Is the same true in South Africa or Tanzania, Anamaria?
Yeah, it's the same thing in Tanzania too. But in South Africa, it's different because where I used to stay, like a lot of people and a lot of young children get pregnant. But in Tanzania, you have to get, maybe everybody would expect you to get a baby when you're married already. So like you have to get married and then you have babies, but not before that. Everybody would look up onto you and they would gossip.
When I talk about like pregnancy before marriage, it's a shameful thing in Marwa. It's not everybody. The Christian people, they can get pregnant and stay with their boyfriends. Nobody talks about it. But of course, I don't live with the Christian. I live in a Muslim family. So I'm talking only about the Muslim family. The Christian is allowed to get pregnant before marriage.
Here, it's quite different with Christians too. Like with Christians here in Tanzania, you don't get pregnant. You don't have a baby before you're married.
And in other, religion, in Muslims are different?
I don't know about Muslims.
Okay, so, and speaking about religion, let's just talk a little bit about witchcraft and that kind of stuff. We were just talking about it earlier today. Tell me a little bit about what percentage of the Tanzanians would you say believe in witchcraft? And when you were in South Africa, did you feel that it was about the same or less or more? Or how do you see that, Anamaria?
Talking about witchcraft, a lot of people here, they believe in witchcraft. Very high percentage of people believe in witchcraft.
How about 70%?
Yeah, could be. A lot of people go to witch doctors and they would think like most of their things would work in relationships, in work activities. They have stayed with people who would do business and they would go to witch doctors and stuff. But I myself have never done witchcraft or participated in one. Where I used to stay in South Africa, like people were not ashamed of talking about witchcraft. Like they would even ask if you have better witch doctors in Tanzania, or if you use juju in your relationship and stuff. Where the family I used to live with, they don't care about witchcraft. They participate in witchcraft.
Okay, well, witchcraft, I would say in Cameroon, 99% believe in it. The only people who don't believe in witchcraft are the atheists, people who have no religion. But almost everybody in Cameroon have a religion. You either have to be a Christian or a Muslim. Those are the two things that people fear to say, I'm a Christian or I'm a Muslim. So I have stayed in a family where they do the witchcraft. I have participated in it. I used to believe in it before, but then as time goes on, I didn't believe in it. But still, my friends, till today, they think that I got married and my life is the way it is today because I have a great witch doctor. And they ask me to take them to my witch doctor, and when I don't reply to it, they get angry and they tell me, you're very successful and you don't want to introduce us to your great witch doctor, you're really having a bad heart. And they tell me, and I tell them I don't have any witch doctor. They're like, no, we know that you have a great witch doctor. And then I just don't have anything to tell them. Even reverend fathers, they just believe that, for them, they believe that somebody who is sitting down in some mountain place, if you do something bad to him, if you don't have Jesus protecting you, the person can just send you some bad, evil spirit that can come and strangle you in the middle of the night, or just things like that. They believe it, but they know it cannot touch them because they themselves are covered by the blood of Jesus. But they just believe that witchcraft worked on weaker people who have no God in them. So it just, everybody believes in it.
Anamaria, you said something interesting, that you said that in South Africa people talk a little bit more openly about witchcraft than they do in Tanzania. But would you say that there are more witchcraft believers in South Africa? You said about maybe 70% in Tanzania. Did you think that it was more prevalent or less prevalent believers in South Africa?
Okay, maybe in Tanzania people wouldn't talk about it openly. as in the way they would talk about it in South Africa. So maybe that would change the percentage ways. So I don't really know, because here people don't talk freely, but in the communities you'd see people participate in stuff.
But how can you participate without talking about it?
Maybe when you're very close to those people, they would tell you. But compared to South Africa, like, people would just talk about it in the streets. But here, you have to get closer to that person so that they would tell you, or you have to live with a person so to see if they participate or not. So that's here they would not be so freely free to talk about witchcraft and stuff, but in South Africa they would talk about it like openly.
So give me an example. Do your parents practice witchcraft, and if so, what do they do?
No, my parents, they are really religious people. Like, they don't even want to associate with such things. Even my mom, I would tell her about, like, a friend of mine told me, like, we should do business and we should go to a witch doctor, and she would tell me never to do that, because she was never raised that way, and she never really raised us in those grounds. So she's very strict on that. And
so who do you know that does practice? Like in South Africa, there were just all sorts of people doing it, or?
Yeah, like in South Africa, my mother-in-law used to talk about it. She would, like, when we get into fights with my previous boyfriend, she would go to a sangoma, and she would go to inquire, and she would be told, maybe these people fight because of this and this and that. So she would come tell me, like, a sangoma said this and that. So
what is a sangoma?
A sangoma is a witch doctor.
Right now I have my grandmother's younger sister in the village. She's like a seer, and her younger brother gives people medicines to, take a shower with it, put in the food of their husbands or brothers, or whoever you want the medicine to take effect on, you just call their names. Like, I have known women who says, like, if your husband is going out of the house and you don't want him to, look at other women or to sleep with other women, you go to the witch doctor, and they will give you, in Hausa they call the name of the stick is muchia. Muchia is what we cook the fufu with it. So they will give you with some things tied on it. You bring it to the house. So when your husband is at home and you want his private part to be standing and you have sexy time together, you make the muchia to stand up against the wall, like standing. And when you're done with your husband and he's going out for business or whatever, you make the muchia to lie down, and then his private part will lie down. It will not rise up even if somebody touch it, whatever. I never tried it. I don't know if it worked, but people use it, and I have been with those people. In fact, I myself have yeah. So before I got married, my grandmother's younger sister, I went to the village, and she took my palm and she read the future. She said, you're going to get married and you're going to go far away from home. And I told her, with who? She says, I don't know. And when? She says, I don't know, but I just think it is stupid. So you can't tell me when and with who. She said, yes, but you will get married. And then her brother, that same evening, he gave me a powder, black one. He says I should take a shower with it, but while taking the shower, I shouldn't stand up. I should sit down and take the shower, so that I don't know why I cannot stand up. Therefore, I did what he told me. Not that it will work or whatever. I just did it. I have no reason to do it. I didn't believe in God or any spirit, but still I used the powder, and I allow my grandma's sister to read my palms. And I went back to Yaoundé, and then 1 year later I traveled to meet my boyfriend, and I got married. And I told my friends what happened in the village, that my uncle gave me a powder to take a shower with it. So now they believe that the powder that my uncle gave me to take a shower with it is what is bringing me good luck. Therefore, I have to go back to that my uncle and give them that same powder. I didn't do it, and everybody is angry with me.
Well, obviously it did work. So, Anamaria, tell me a little bit about some specific examples of witchcraft, just like Rejoice did there, that you can remember, either comical because it did work or didn't work, Do you remember a specific, and what exactly are they doing? Are they killing a chicken, sacrificing a goat? What are they doing? Are they sprinkling powder on your head?
Where in Tanzania?
Tanzania or South Africa?
Like how people would tell?
No, how people actually, give me an example, specific example of witchcraft that you observed and whether it worked or didn't work or seemingly worked.
Okay.
This is Rejoice, you give me an example.
Okay, I also remember in Marwa, I was staying with the family. The woman that I was staying with is dead now. And she said one evening that her marabu told her that there is a concoction buried near our water. We have fridge at home, but we have a place where we put the water in the pot, clay pots, to make it cold for us to drink, and that there is something buried near the pot, and it was the ex-wife of her husband who has put it there, and that same thing is causing her to have miscarriages. Her husband is treating her badly is because of that concoction that is buried in the ground, and it is her marabu who told her. So we started digging the place, and we found some ugly thing. It is a combination of whatever you can find. It's just stupidly ugly, and we dig it out and we took it to her marabu. I was the one who took it to her marabu with a chicken, with some rice and money. and the one was very grateful. He destroyed it in his own way, and I came back to the house with another concoction. So we removed one and brought back the good one. We removed the evil one and came back to the house with good one, with specific instruction that she has to put it under the bed of her husband for him to change his attitude. This one she has to take a shower with it and smoke herself with it. And this one she has to put at his door so that he will jump it. And once he jump it, all that the evil medicine has done will go back to being good. And she did. But her husband never changed. And she never had a child. So it didn't work, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, for some foreigners, it sounds so exotic, all these crazy things. But in the end, a lot of religions, that's what they do even today. I mean, we think that those are the mythologies, the crazy witchcraft. It's not true, but, Jesus is true, or Muhammad is the right way, etc. But, if you're not a believer of Muhammad or Jesus, and then you see what they do.
Yeah, it doesn't really work, except but in some cases, like this woman that I was living with, she really believed that these things will work, and she prays all the time. She prays, even at night she will wake up to pray, but then in the daytime she will give me chicken or something to take to her marabu, and I will bring the medicine, even though she believe in it. But to me, who live in the same house with her, and I see why she's going to the marabu, it didn't work. You see, it didn't work. Her husband never came back to love her, and her miscarriages never stopped. And she died miserably, not happy, dedicating all her life to marabu and praying instead of enjoying and doing something crazy. But she didn't do it, and it didn't work.
She died getting trampled to death.
Yeah, she died still worshiping the Lord, getting trampled to death in Saudi Arabia. She traveled to go and worship the Lord and throw the Satan the stone as they do in the Mecca, and she died there. So her God was not that really merciful to her, I guess.
Have you thought of something in Anamaria?
Yes, I have a friend of mine. She told me about like the witch practices. So she told me once she was told by a witch doctor, she was given medications, I don't know, like powders and stuff. One you put in the food so that your husband does not go and cheat. And another one you put for him when you prepare water for him to go take a shower, you put for him too. But she told me like one day she was scared at first to put in the food, so she only used the one that she was told to put for him in the bathing water. So she told me the husband did not come home that whole week, so that one did not work. And another one, friends of mine, they told me they were very rich, they had a business place, and their father would not slaughter, they would dig a ground and put a whole cow alive and bury the cow alive, so that would bring customers, and they would they would lock themselves, the whole family, they would lock themselves inside with witch doctors, and they would like have these razor blades. They cut themselves a little bit, and they put some medication, like a powder thing, and they would take this bones from a lion, and they would also use them to cut themselves, and they say that would bring power, and whatever they would say to people would just agree to whatever they want. So, but at the end of the day, when the father was alive, it used to work, but then when the father died, they were not rich anymore. Everything just perished.
Interesting.
Yeah, I also remember in Nigeria, where I used to live in Kangarwa. It's in Borno State. There is this medicine that they call it lukudi. When you drink it, you have money. And during the ritual, they give you many options. You will have the money, but one of the options is that when you will die, you will go straight to hellfire, if it exists, of course. The second one is that you will have the money, but you will not be able to enjoy it. You just have the money, but you're just very stingy. You can't do anything with the money. The other one is that you have the money, you can give it, you cannot give anybody the money. Like, you can't help your wife, your mom, your brother, as we do in Africa. When you have money, you have to help your family. This is just things that is normal. You can't do it. So people really believe it. We have a lot of rich people in my neighborhood, and we call them El Lukudi. We think that they went to the witch doctors and they drank that lukudi. That is why they have this gigantic amount of money. And so nobody believes that really you can just work hard and have a lot of money. Even my mom, her restaurant, we used to have a restaurant, and we really sell a lot. I think the reason why we sell a lot is that my mom, she's from Cameroon, and she have learned how to cook food, and she's very clean. We have big restaurant, but everything, it's always clean, no flies, nothing is dirty, and people love it, and they come to our restaurant, and we sell a lot of food. We have a lot of money. But the other restaurant in town, they think that my mom have a great witch doctor who is giving her things to put in the shop. And even my mom, I know she goes to the witch doctor and she bring things to bring her more customers, and she think it works, her witch doctor works. But when you sit down and think about it, people come to our restaurant because we don't give them leftover food from yesterday. We give them clean food, we give them everything, and we welcome them, we treat them right. I think that is why they come, not because of the witch doctors. Yeah.
And there's another time, a friend of mine, a business partner, she told me, like, we need to go to a witch doctor so that the place can be flooded with customers. So I disagreed, but she went to a witch doctor, and she brought something tied in some black cloth. They call it
In what country this?
This is in Tanzania. They call it irizi. So I don't know what they keep inside, but it would bring you customers and stuff. But at the end, maybe it would work for 2 days or 3, and then it would finish. I don't know. But if they say, if you believe in witchcraft, it works. So that's what happens. And this other time, she told me a friend of hers took her to a place called Sumbawanga in Tanzania. That's why they believe like they are powerful witch doctors. So they say you buy a body of a dead person, and then they soak it in water, and then you drink the water. And then when you come back and you do business, you get a lot of customers. But I don't think it works, because at the end of the day, we never used to get any customers. Like, we would stay the whole day. Before, we never used she never used to go, so we would get customers. But when she used to practice that, we lost all our customers.
My last witch doctor thing is when I was in boarding school in Adamawa State in Nigeria. JSS Madagali, and there is these young boys in school. They are all excited, and they want all the girlfriends they can find in school. And one of them, his name is Karim. He kept coming to me all the time, like he wants me to be his girlfriend, and I didn't even really know what that means. I just want to be in the school and have fun and make all the crazy things. I don't want boyfriends. And he told me, okay, if you don't want me in peace, I will go to the witch doctor and I will get the medicine. And I went and told my friend Salamatu, I said, Kasim said he's going to go take me to the witch doctor. Salamatu said, oh my goodness, this boy, his brother is the chairman of this town. They really have good witch doctors. Don't ever look at him in the eyes, because the witch doctor will give him a medicine that if you look at him in the eyes, you will become like a goat. If he tells you to sit down, you will sit down. If he tells you to stand up, you will stand up. You'll be following him and you would really love him like crazy. He will do whatever he wants with you. And I was like, oh, I became so afraid. I never look at him. And we were in the same class with the boys, so it was a torture for me, because I can't look at him anymore. I was afraid he went to the witch doctor and give the witch doctor my name, therefore I will fall in love with him. But after like 1 to 4 days of trying not to look at him, I look at him in the face and nothing happened to me. But there are so many people who believe that they went to the witch doctor and he gave them something, they sprinkle on the girl, or the girl sprinkle on the boy, and then immediately the boy just is like click like this and you fall in love with that person. That was in my boarding school. People became really crazy at a certain time that witch doctors are giving love passions, and people are afraid or they are in love. This is just the disaster that happened that year. And then after we went for holiday and back, all the love story is finished.
And something else, with my stand, I would think like this witchcraft thing is not, I don't know, it's not real, because in South Africa I remember meeting sangomas, these witch doctors, and then I did not know that they were witch doctors, because they used to dress up like people, like a certain tribe in Tanzania called the Maasai tribe. So I thought I met Maasai from in South Africa, so I went to them and I stopped them and I asked if they were Maasai, and they after I spoke to them, they knelt down and they started clapping their hands or saying some stuff that I did not understand. And people that I was working with, they were shocked. They were like, maybe I was more powerful compared to those sangomas or the witch doctors there. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I don't practice witchcraft, and yet those people just knelt down or something. So in people's perspective, whatever they would see, they would think it's right, but it's not really helpful.
Yeah, okay. Not the last, I guess. There was these people in Nigeria, they call them Tangale. They have this funny, I don't know what they have in their body, but whenever they are passing, they have about 50 dogs following them. I don't know if they were unwanted dogs or people just give them the dog, but and also they have a whistle. When they stop, all the 50 dogs stop. When they start moving, all the 50 dogs follow them. They control the dogs like you turn on and off a TV. And so that was in Kangaroo, we see them a lot. And everybody believes that those Tangale people, they have a magic charm. And they come to the town they're passing. If you have a dog, nobody keeps dog. People find dogs to be like dirty and whatever. They throw stones at them. We don't take care of dogs there, at least. So you see the street dogs, they will catch the street dogs. I don't know what they give the people, but at that time when I was in Kangaroo, we used to believe that those Tangale, they have a lot of medicine. So they will stop at our restaurant to eat. My mom will give them free food, and then they will give her medicines in exchange, and some of them we will drink, some of them we will put in our Robin creams, and they will give me medicine to write exam and pass, even though I did not know how to read. I always go to school and I keep passing. And they give us medicine also to put in our hair cream, so that our hair will grow long. I used to have long hair, but I think it's because my mom was taking care of my hair. Every week she washed it and plaited the African way and whatever. But we really believe that those Tangale people have magic if they don't have magic, how do they control like 50 dogs? You never know. I never figured that out.
So it's all about what you believe.
Yeah, and that's the key thing. I mean, you guys have cited a lot of cases where the witchcraft did not work. And obviously it does, quote unquote, work for a lot of people, because otherwise, if it always consistently failed, then we wouldn't have witchcraft in the 21st century. What I think a lot of Africans and other people, who believe in witchcraft don't understand is the placebo effect. In other words, are you familiar, Anamaria, about the placebo effect?
No.
Okay, so basically it's the idea that I give you a pill, a doctor gives you a pill and says this will cure your illness. Now the pill is just a sugar pill, it's nothing, it has actually no medicine in it. But because I'm in a nice, doctor's suit and we're in a hospital and I give you this thing and I tell you you're going to be fine, then your body actually manages to heal itself and the sickness goes away. And there's even placebo surgeries where they just cut your knee, you're having knee problems, they just make an incision, but they actually don't touch your knee, and then they sew it back up, and then your knee all of a sudden feels better. So the point is that these are all sham surgeries and placebos, but they take advantage of the person who believes in it. And so that's, I think, why witchcraft seems to work for so many Africans, and that's why it continues today. But I think, I don't know if the tradition, do you think in your generation, how old are you right now?
I'm turning 30.
So in your generation, you're young and you got a lot of people in their 20s, I'm sure you have friends with, even in their early 30s. Would you say that the popularity is going up or down in your generation?
Like people who believe in witchcraft? People start believing in witchcraft when they're very young. And when they get older, they even, it's just too much.
But is your generation, your young generation, people in their 20s and 30s, are they believing in it today in Tanzania?
Yes, they are.
Do you think that they believe it more or less than your fathers?
I think our fathers, compared to this generation right now, our fathers would practice that, but they would use more of traditional medications and stuff to heal people. But right now it has become dangerous. Like people would use witchcraft to do even bad things to each other. So that's the difference.
So it's going to be here for a while, I think.
Yes.
Are you going to teach your little? You have a baby girl.
Yeah.
Are you going to teach her witchcraft?
No, I'm never going to teach her witchcraft.
Yeah, I think it's going to be in Cameroon. Let's say from Marwa to Garwa. This is where I have been for a long time. I have also stayed in Yaoundé for a while. I think it's going to be there for until I am old, at least. Because these people of my age who have children, they're already introducing their daughter or their son to witchcraft. So it's not going to go away anytime soon.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, okay, tell me about how children are raised. Because one thing that is really fascinating to me about Africa is that the children, no matter where I go in general, are so much more well-behaved compared to people in the Western world. The children in the Western world they talk back to their parents, they argue, they no, I'm not going to do that. They're very disobedient. African children in general are much more obedient, much more docile, easygoing. They don't yell and scream nearly as much. Even the babies, I don't know how they do it, but even African babies don't seem to make as much noise as American babies. So my question is what do you think is the secret? And I don't know if you notice the difference between South Africa and here, or do you see the same kind of results, or do you think the South African children are much more rebellious than the ones here in Tanzania?
Like children in Tanzania, the way we are raised, we are very disciplined, and it's because our parents would beat us very much when. Even in schools, when you misbehave, you would get a hiding, you would be really beaten. And it's in Tanzania, it's not only the family that raises a child. The whole society is responsible in raising children. You would see you would walk in the streets and you would see a child misbehaving, and you would stop and even shout or beat that child or say a right thing that it needs to be done. But in other societies, like in South Africa, I've seen like I don't know, it's because they are so much westernized, like compared to our societies. Like children would are more free compared to our Tanzanian societies. Like they would go out, they would wear however they want to, but with the Tanzanian society, it's quite different. Like,
so I'm curious, it's just a Western thing that has been kind of infiltrated into the South African mindset?
yes.
So tell me a little bit more about how these South Africans, how different are they? Because one thing when I went there, I don't know if you felt it, but it felt like there was much more racism here than there is here on all levels, both the blacks not liking the whites and the whites not liking the blacks, and even tribes against tribes, Zulus against Xhosa, etc. So that was my impression. Did you feel the same way, or did you feel differently?
I felt the same way because when I went, like in Tanzania, you go to restaurants and you'd be mixed in all races. Like you'd sit with Chinese, white people, you'd greet them and stuff. But in South Africa, it was very different. Like where we used to stay in Rustenburg, we would go to places and like you would see certain restaurants like are white for whites only, others are for black people, and others are for mixed races. So I think that thing of racism still exists up until today, and like people wouldn't greet each other in a very polite way and stuff. Like I think there is still a problem.
And by the way, those restaurants that are segregated, they're self-segregated. There's no law in South Africa that allows a restaurant to turn away anybody, right?
Yes.
So it's just they've self-selected themselves into this little corner.
Yeah, it's very true. And there are some places you'd pass or in communities where you'd only find black societies, and you would never find like white people passing or even go to shop there. And some places you'd go and you'd only find like the only black people that would be living there is the richest people, but those places are only for white people.
And speaking about rich white people, I mean, in Tanzania and much of Africa actually, white people often are, seems to me, as being a white male myself, being desired by the women just because, well, I don't know why. So the standard answer that everybody will say is that it's because everybody thinks white men are rich, and so therefore that's the main reason. Is that all there is to it, or is there something more behind that?
Like in Tanzania, it's very true. Like women would think white people are rich, and they would want to date white people so that they would have a better life. And yeah, even people who come, it's not only people who come from poor families or what, it's the whole perspective. Like when you have a white guy, he is rich, and people would date them so that they would have a better life. And yeah.
And so is it just simply a wealth issue?
No, it's not only a wealth issue, but they say like there is people who date white people, like white people have true love and stuff. And it's not only for the part of males, also females.
So in other words, if you're a black man and you can date a white woman, that she will truly love you.
Yeah, she would truly love you. And they also think it's the same way. They also think that they could have a better life out of a white woman.
And what about in South Africa, where you have about 7-8% white people? Did you notice the same kind of desire, or because of the racism that just doesn't exist?
I didn't get a chance to see like white people dating blacks.
But did you see black women? Did you talk to, let's say, black women or black men who are saying, oh, I really want to get a white guy or a white girl?
No, in South Africa it was different compared to here.
So why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Okay. It could be, again, the issue of racism, but of course we're just speculating. I mean, so basically you're saying that one of it is economical, and one of it is this idea that the white people have a more love. Is it that love doesn't exist in Tanzania between blacks?
It does exist, but you really have to get a person who goes to church, like a very religious person. But otherwise,
What about a guy who believes in witchcraft?
I don't know about that. But
So you think that if it's just a religious guy, then he will be loving and faithful?
yes.
So what percentage of men do you think are faithful?
30%.
30%.
Yes, are faithful.
30% of men are faithful. Only 1% of them.
30.
Okay, so you think 30% are faithful. What about percentage of women who are faithful?
A lot of women are not faithful.
What percentage do you think are faithful? You said 30% of men are faithful. What about the percentage of women who are faithful?
20% of women are
20% of women are faithful and 30% are you what?
So you think women cheat more?
Yes, I think women cheat more compared to men.
Interesting. So I mean, I've talked to so many people in Africa, and you're definitely an exception on that. So go ahead and explain why. Now we're very curious because this is a very unusual answer.
Because like
You just know a lot of your girlfriends who are all, banging a few guys on the side?
yes, for their and they do it for a or they would be with someone for a purpose, not that they truly love that. But most of my friends, my male friends, they would complain of being cheated, and that's the reason why they become the way they are compared to women.
So you think that women cheat on their men, and therefore the men find out and they get pissed off, and then they say, okay, I'm going to show her, I'm going to do the same thing. So basically you're saying that the women kind of push the men to cheat?
Yes.
And why are the women cheating?
Women are cheating because of women, they want to have a better life. They want nice things. And if the man cannot afford, they would secretly go and sleep with somebody else to get whatever they want, and yet come back to the man and pretend as if everything is fine.
This is a fascinating thing because I've come up with a term for it, and it's in my book. It's called post-prostitutes. In other words, a normal prostitute, you ask money before sex, and a post-prostitute gives you the bill after sex. And so this is something that's so common in so many African societies, that the women, you have sex with them, and then they expect something. They might say, I want some taxi money to go home. And let's say it costs $5 to cross the entire town. You give them $5. Here you go. There's your taxi money. And they're like, no, that's not enough. I'm like, wait a second. You just asked me for taxi money. What's the story?
Yeah, it's very true. In my society, Tanzanian society, even the educated women would do that. They would tell you, even if you're dating a person who doesn't have money, they would ask you, where does your man work? What does he do? Does he give you money or stuff? You need to have a second rebound, or even a backup plan. So even some family or relatives would tell you, there is this thing in the marriage process. It's called a kitchen party, or sometimes you'd sit with your aunties and stuff, and they would prepare you for marriage. So they tell you, you don't break up with your man if he's not well off.
You don't break up if he's not well off?
Yeah, you don't break up with him.
Why not? If he doesn't have money,
you need to find
a substitute.
Yeah.
A backup first.
Yes.
And then you break up.
No, you don't break up.
Never. Or you just have to have your backup and then just cheat on him on the side, and then the backup gives you money.
Yeah.
It's your sugar daddy.
Yes. So they tell you, but you need to do it secretly. They tell you need to have a backup plan. Mm-hmm. People have backup plans, and they even use the money to help their husbands. So that's what happens to our communities.
So they tell you this the day that you're preparing to go get married. Like tomorrow you're getting married and these aunties and friends get into a room. Only women?
Not when you like tomorrow you're getting married. No, but in the process of getting married, like you would sit with some women and they would tell you.
Well, this is funny. They advise you to have a backup plan and never separate with your husband no matter what happened. In my place, Marwa, it is very different. When you're getting married, the older woman, your mom, grandma, they all come in the evening to the house and they sit you down. And they advise you that you have to respect your husband, you should love him, you should give him food, never fight, raise your voice on him, always have sex whenever he wants it. And you can never, in fact, even looking at other men, even thinking about sex with other men, it's sinful. You shouldn't do it. It doesn't matter what you have money or you don't have money. Stick with your husband. Sexing other men while you're married, it is something they completely tell you never to do it.
Yeah, it's the same here, but they would tell you how to make your ways secretly.
But that's very different. I mean, Rejoice just said that there it's prohibited.
Yeah, for us, they don't tell you can do it secretly. They tell you ho-ha in front of you that you can't even look at other men, forget that the world exists. What is important for you is your husband. If you have a baby, it's your baby. So your husband is the God of the family. After God who created you is your husband.
It's different here because people would tell you secretly to follow other ways, but you keep your husband.
And you're saying that 70% of women kind of go into that.
Yeah.
So this is all very fascinating because, the whole point of the Unseen Africa is to uncover how Africans are different, how they're similar. And already we're seeing here that in northern Cameroon, they might have one belief system of how a woman should be. And in Tanzania, at least, what Dodoma area, would you say? The Dodoma area? Rather than Dar es Salaam. Dar es Salaam's so big and diverse, you probably get every opinion under the sun. But basically, here in Dodoma, in Tanzania, there's a sectors of society, and in your opinion, 70% of it, where the women are actually quite encouraged to go for at least one backup, maybe more.
Yeah, they even have a word for that. Like, they would secretly tell you to have, they call it mafiga matatu. So like you have, how they would cook, they would prepare the food locally, and they would have like 3 stones and supporting the pot. So the pot would be your husband, and you'd have secretly other people supporting him.
You need 3 guys.
Not 3, but they need to support your husband. Like secretly you go, like if he's not financially stable, you go, you have this guy supporting you financially. So...
But I mean, I'm wondering if a man, let's say, especially if you have 2 of them, if you have 2 guys supporting you in addition to your husband, and you're making some pretty good income there, I mean, at some point, doesn't the husband who's poor and destitute, doesn't he realize that, hey, where'd you get this nice phone? And, wow, you got a nice car now all of a sudden. Where did that come from?
Yeah, it's very true. They notice. That's why most people, they break up.
So it's not a good long-term strategy.
Yeah, so they say you need to be very secretive, and like your husband should never ever notice.
So you have to get some money, but not enough.
You get, but you can hide your money.
But I just wanted to ask a question. But are there men who notice that their wives are cheating on them, but since you're bringing the money to them and supporting them and they're okay with it, they just keep quiet and pretend ignorance?
Yes, it happens a lot here in Tanzania. Like men would notice that maybe their wife has, but this is mostly for people who are not yet married. So they would even notice like their wife goes and she brings money, and yet he would be quiet because for most men who don't want to work and they would want to have an easy life. And this happens, you might find like a very young guy dating a very old woman, or an older woman compared to him. she has other means of getting income, and she would tell that young boy. And this happens because it's only they're in a relationship only because of sexual satisfaction. So this woman gets satisfied with this young boy, and he's quiet. He doesn't say, he doesn't have a say. So this woman would go find money and provide for this boy.
And do you ever see that where the older man has many, many women as well that he's supporting?
Yes, it's very common in Tanzania. Like,
what about polygamy? In
in
other words, one man who has 3 wives, 4 wives.
It happens with the Muslim societies, like having many wives. But Christians, it happens, but most of these men, old men, would cheat on their wives also because of sexual satisfaction. And most young women in Tanzania, like very young girls, they would date even their fathers for money.
What do you mean they're going to date you mean their father's friends?
No, I mean like people who were very old, and maybe the girl is 16 and she's dating a guy who is 50 years old. Right. Or
when you said they're dating their fathers, I was like, whoa. Interesting. And so do you think that in South Africa, going back to that as an example, do you think that the fidelity of men and women, is it about the same issue, or do you think the women there are more faithful, the men are less? Do you see it different, or is it hard to say?
For the time I've spent my time there, I think men there cheat a lot compared to their women. Like men, especially those who work in industrial areas. I don't know why, but they cheat a lot compared to women. Women could be faithful there. So
again, a kind of a difference between countries.
Yeah, I think in Cameroon, especially in Marwa Garwa, I would say again, because there the women we have one goal. You grow up, you finish, you just learn how to read. You don't even need to finish high school, most of them. And marriage. Once you get married, your husband is the only thing that will keep you going. Therefore, the women, I can say 99% of them are faithful. Of course, still there's some who will always still go out even though they're married and sleep with some other men. But the women are really faithful. But I don't know around Yaoundé and Douala, because there the girls are all westernized. They wear short skirt and leave half of their bodies outside. So that I cannot tell. But where I came from, the women are faithful. But the men, even though there are very few women to cheat, the women don't cheat. The men in Marwa, they have girlfriends. I think 100% of them, maybe. Okay, I would just say 99% of the men also, they cheat. They have 4 women at home, legally married, but then they have another girlfriend, not one, maybe 2 even, or 3 in different areas. They have girlfriends.
Very different than Tanzania, I guess. And do you see any of this changing at all, or kind of like the same situation is perpetuating itself in the future?
I think these things will still go on for a while, because with the new technologies and stuff, people trying to think like it's a normal thing, but it's not really a normal thing.
What do you think about the future of South Africa versus the future of Tanzania? Do you think which country is going to do better in the future? Where would you rather be? Is it too hard to say, or if you could live in South Africa, would you prefer to live there, or if you could easily live in, obviously, or would you rather stay in Tanzania?
I would rather stay in Tanzania.
Why is that?
Most of the things that are there nowadays, they're also here, so I would stay here.
Okay, so even though the official standard of living and all that stuff in South Africa, is it just purely friends and family that attracts you here, or is there something else that attracts you about Tanzania?
About Tanzania, family most.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it changes. And what about the Swahili language? I mean, it's such a, it's Tanzania compared to South Africa, for example. There's far more English speakers in South Africa, for sure, isn't there?
Yeah, people speak English, but they are mostly proud to speak their language. Like they speak, maybe they would speak Tswana, Xhosa, I don't know, whatever languages, but they know how to speak English, but they are mostly proud to speak their language compared to English.
What about in Tanzania? I mean, Tanzanians are very proud of Swahili.
Tanzania is proud of Swahili, but when you speak English, people think of you in another way. Maybe you're educated or you have money and stuff. But yeah, people are proud, but yet they would speak English compared to their native languages.
Right. So, and in Tanzania, the government is doing much effort to kind of promote, because one challenge is that Swahili is mainly an East African language. It has a kind of a limited base compared to English, which is a global language. Do you see that changing?
They're trying to implement so many things to be like schools. In schools, they should be taught in Kiswahili and writing books in Kiswahili. But most of the places, like schools that I went to, we were taught in English. So it's still... it would take time for them to implement.
Well, it's very funny, because I was thinking she would say the government is trying to tell the schools to teach English, but instead he is telling everybody to teach Kiswahili, because right now most Tanzanians, they don't speak English. Even if they're proud of Swahili or not, they have to speak Swahili because it is the only other choice they have. They have nothing else to speak. They can't speak English, they can't speak French, they can't speak Arabic. And now that the government is trying to say, hey, everybody speaks Swahili in school, then it's going to be a disaster, I think.
I mean, the investment of the government, I mean, don't you think is it seems to be a very nationalistic government, the one that's in power in 2018 and up until 2020. Do you think that's true? Have you noticed that, or you haven't really noticed it? Or you're just afraid to answer because you're going to be thrown in prison?
No, I'm not. But they're trying to make ways and change policies to make the economy grow. But I think those policies are not working, because most of the people and investors are running away, and people, they're saying it's very difficult to invest here right now. So I don't really know well, because I'm not so good in economics and stuff. Yeah.
So interesting. And so it's hard for you to say whether the president is popular or not?
He is, in his own ways.
Okay, so Anamaria, tell me a little bit about why Tanzania is remaining poor. What is your analysis of it, and why? What has to be done to change that?
I think there is, in my opinion, I think we need to do something about the education system in Tanzania. Like the education system prepares people to be employed and not really be self-employed. Like most of the people, after finishing school, they would expect to get a better job from the government or something. So most people we have really many educated people, but they are not prepared for self-employment. They are really focusing on getting jobs. In the people finish school, and they would think about getting a better job in the bank or somewhere else, but they do not think of other ways or other means of making money apart from being employed. That's the really main problem with our education system. So
you're basically saying it's just the educational system that needs to be fixed, and then all of a sudden the money will roll in?
It will.
So you're saying that the government needs to kind of train people to become better entrepreneurs?
Yes, it does need to do that.
At the same time, it's kind of interesting, because I see in some ways Africans being the most entrepreneurial society out there, not because really they want to, but because they have no other choice. In other words, if you look at a lot of the women, they go out there and sell things on their head. They're balancing fruits and vegetables on their head to sell, and the little children are doing everything. So there's a lot of little entrepreneurship, but just because they need to get that $1 a day to make a living, but not because they're trying to build some big business. But it is true, it seems to me, that somebody who is educated, their number one goal, it's so funny when I talk to so many Africans, is that they want to work for the government.
Yeah, even in our society, like when you're educated, you finish up school and stuff. Like people wouldn't think about that education that you're given should help you in your day-to-day activities, or maybe I studied law, so people would really expect me to work in the judiciary. So if you saying like I only studied to get knowledge so that even it should help me out in my business, maybe in making contracts and stuff like that, people would look at you and they would think like you just wasted your time studying law or something. They would never think of you like you got education so that it could help you in your future, but they would think of the education you got, it should help you to work and help others in your future. So that's the main difference. So people don't really expect people to get educated and get self-employed. They want you to work somewhere.
All right. Well, any last thoughts on South Africa? I'm always intrigued by an outsider's perspective, an African outsider's perspective about South Africa. Did you enjoy your time there, and do you wish you can go back?
Yeah, I really enjoyed my time there. I got to see new things that like the country is so developed, clean. It's too many stuffs that I would really wish to go back and see.
Do you think that Tanzania can catch up to South Africa?
Yeah, we're trying. Nowadays we have the flyovers getting built, so I think we'll get there soon.
Next week?
No, 10 years.
Okay, well, we'll tune in 10 years. We'll interview you then, Anamaria. Anyway, I thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. It was nice.
And that wraps up this week's episode of the WanderLearn podcast, where we explore travel, technology, and transformation. I'm just going to ask you for one simple favor before you go. One small favor, and that is to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your friends, review it, and send me lots of money. How about that as one simple favor? Seriously, guys, if you'd like to know a little bit more about what we talked about in the show, like the show notes, links to things that we talked about, go to WanderLearn.com. If you would like to comment on the show, go to WanderLearn.com and make your comments known there. Tell me what you thought, what you liked, what you didn't like, anything that you thought about the show. Second of all, if you'd like to support the show, one way to do that, you can go to WanderLearn.com/shop, buy something at the shop. I would love it. Also, if you'd like to sponsor a show, you can send me an email at ft@francistapon.com. That's ft@francistapon.com. This show was edited by Rejoice Tapon. The music was done by David Hamilton. This is Francis Tapon, encouraging you to wander and learn.